Let's do this.
Howdy, welcome on in everyone. Today I thought we'd take a little bit of a different kind of look at Street Fighter. With all the new characters coming out, there's been a lot of footage floating around the internet, and I've spent quite a lot of time looking at each different person coming out and kind of the different views from the people who had their chance to get a hands-on experience in the Capcom invite. So with this, I thought we'd go through and we'd make our little cross diagram here, and we're going to place each character on this chart for where they can be kind of between how easy they are to learn versus how hard they are to master, and kind of where they fall along these lines. So we're going to go real quick. Just remember, this is subject to change. This is my own personal input based on what I've seen. This could be completely wrong. We'll find out here in about a month, so hope y'all are looking forward to it. First up, we have our boy Ryu. He is vanilla Street Fighter at its finest. He offers an easy entry point into the series for a lot of players, with a balanced array of tools to handle all situations. His Denki is unique in that it allows what you would normally use for combos to be knocked up a notch. It gives you increased damage for taking the time to power it up during a knockdown, compared to using that opportunity to reduce space between you and your opponent with something like a drive rush. So because of his decision making that you need to do on the fly, I don't find him to be too difficult, so we're going to place him right over here. I feel like this is a good spot for you, right about here. He's easy to learn, not too hard to master compared to some of the others on our list. So next up, we have Luke. So Luke and his unique mechanic are going to be timed specials. Luke's timed specials offer new and improved combos from his base kit. There is a downside to this because you have to learn timings down to a very small window. And once you master them though, it opens up a world of opportunities. Slightly harder to execute than Ryu because of the timing, but I believe it offers a bigger payout since you don't have to sacrifice the time to do chores like charging a Denki. We're placing him near Ryu, but slightly higher in the skill ceiling and slightly harder to learn. So we're going to put him right about here, fairly middle of the road. Next on our list, we have ChunLi. So ChunLi is a little bit different in that she actually became a stance character in Street Fighter 6. Her stance gives her access to a lot of new normals. Her swap means she has access to different tools and frame data she can use to give her a plethora of options against every character. Chun-Li's going to be one of those characters that will require a large amount of game knowledge, more than most, and better adaptability to play at the highest level. So I'm going to put her a little bit closer to the top end of hard to master, hard to learn. We're going to go right about here. Next up on our list, we have Marissa. Her special unique trait is that she has charged heavy strikes. They offer an easy to understand playstyle for those who just want to get in and go unga bunga. They also do a lot of drive gauge damage on block, which make her terrifying if she's allowed to go on the offensive. She also has a very good defensive tool with her counter stance, which forces players to guess if they should be offensive or defensive against her. I don't think her tools are very hard to grasp or master, and they don't have a huge amount of depth. So I'm actually going to place her closer to the low end of easy to learn, easy to master. I feel like Marissa's kind of going to sit right about here. I think she's a great entry-level character, and a good place to start for those looking to get into Street Fighter, just in general, and learn a bit about the game. Next up, we have Lily. Lily's unique trait is her wind stock. Charging wind stocks is one of the easiest chores to do in the game when compared to things like stacking Banan medals or chugging with Jamie. They improve the viability of her special moves and turn unsafe opportunities into very good possibilities. Despite her wind stocks empowering her specials, she suffers from a weakness to fireballs like all grapplers. Separate from other grapplers though, Lily has very strong neutral buttons, which allow her to pressure from outside the range of a lot of the more stubby characters like Banan or Ryu safely. As a fairly easy to use and straightforward character, I see Lily excelling in many situations, so I'm putting her as the easiest character to learn. Slightly harder to master than Marissa, but just because she doesn't handle fireballs well at all. So she is far and away going to be the easiest character for most people to pick up and play. Next up, we have Blanca and his new ability, the Blanca-chan dolls. So Blanca's one of the few people that I'm somewhat lost on. There's not a lot of footage out there about Blanca and how to correctly use his Blanca-chan dolls. They look like they open up a lot of combo opportunities, similar to how Kimberly uses her paint cans, but Blanca-chan requires extra effort to make work since he uses lightning to activate them. That said, they will stick around for about 20 seconds after you place them, so you don't have to activate them right away, and they can be used for good trap setup. I think Blanca offers slightly better options for those who take the time to master it. He's going to go a little bit further on the harder to master and harder to learn side for me. I'm feeling right about here. Next up, we have the Queen of Thirst, Cammy. And in this version of Street Fighter, her special trait is that she has charged special attacks. So I think she looks the best that she's ever been. She is basically the counterpart to Marissa in that when you charge her special moves, they give you extra combo opportunities compared to Marissa, who charges her normal strike moves. So things like their charged hooligan, charged spiral arrow are going to give you a lot of extra opportunities to continue your combos and get some extra damage off. Cammy's downside comes in the form of having to execute these long combos to sustain high damage output continuously though. The difficulty of executing these combos continuously from different situations will make her one of the harder people to learn. On the other hand, the payoff for mastering them looks to be astronomical. I'm putting her closer to the center for easy to learn, but a little bit higher on the difficult to master side, so she's going to sit right about here for me. I see her being devastating at high-end gameplay, and you may be able to do okay with her at first, but it's going to take a lot of effort to really master situational awareness with Cammy. Next up, we have Dhalsim. And Dhalsim maintains the same trait that made him unique in Street Fighter V, which is his air mobility. His air teleports offer an incredibly hard to read air game which often mixes up unsuspecting opponents and gives him very strong damage potential. His teleport is even easier than it's ever been to use, and his zoning normal strikes make for a very balanced fighter. I see him being significantly easier to master than his Street Fighter V counterpart, which was insane, but still being kind of difficult to learn. So I'm placing him to the right and a little bit above center. I think he's going to sit right about here. Okay. Next up, we have Kimberly, and her spray cans are a simple and easy to use mechanic. They offer her aggressive pressure, but unfortunately, since they don't last that long, it's also a tell that you're getting ready to rush down your opponent in about the next 2 seconds. She offers easy to execute combos, quick ways to get done on your opponent, as well as offering great mix-up opportunities, but suffers from a very straightforward approach to how she plays. I see her being somewhat easy to learn and not too difficult to master, but also a somewhat low skill ceiling for the things that are potentially available to her. So I'm putting Kimberly right about here. A little bit easier to master than Marissa. Alright, and on deck is Ken. He's another one of those that I have kind of a hard time placing. His main utility skill is his quick dash, which allows him to rush in without having to expend the drive meter. This allows Ken players to activate overdrive skills more frequently and have slightly stronger combos than the likes of Ryu or Luke more consistently. Learning when to go in and how to utilize his Jinrai kicks effectively is going to be the make or break for Ken users. I don't see him being particularly difficult to master, but a little bit harder to learn to use than some of the other Shotos. So he is going to be one of the few people that's actually going to sit in the bottom right quadrant. Alright, and that brings us to Juri. And her Fujin stock gives her access to stronger moves and extended combos. With the return of her dive kick and Fujin drive kicks, Juri is going to have an easier time getting in on her opponents than ever before. As what looks to be the absolute staple of rushdown characters, Juri comes packed with great buttons, easy to execute combos, and high mobility. Where players are going to have trouble is learning to get the most effect out of her Fujin install super. It increases her damage output through extended combos and new moves, and with easy to gain access to Fujin stocks in her basic combos and a straightforward game plan, I see her as being one of the easier people to learn, with not being too difficult to master. So I'm actually going to keep her dead center on the bar, but move her over here as a little bit easier to learn than Ryu. And following that, we have JP. JP is quite possibly the most wild character to enter Street Fighter 6. With his ability to teleport, full screen command grabs, his disengage potential, and projectile high-low mix-up, he's shaping up to be one of the most difficult characters in Street Fighter 6 to learn. He's a zoning character with an arsenal of tools, which means he has a lot of ways to deal with any threat. Unfortunately, with all of these tools comes a vast amount of situational knowledge and practice that will be required to master him. I foresee JP having the hardest to master toolset in the game, but if you can master him at the highest level, he has the potential to be absolutely unmatched. So I'm actually going to place JP in the very top right corner. I wish I could put him further off the chart. I don't see this guy being easy to learn at all. But just to keep things simple and condensed, we are placing him right about here. And next on the docket is Jamie. Jamie is very unique with his drink gauge in that he's the only character who doesn't have access to his full kit from the start of the round. I find his abilities being locked behind drink levels makes him initially difficult to learn. Once you familiarize yourself with how to weave drinks into his combos, Jamie immediately becomes a lot more accessible. Having to so frequently drink instead of being able to utilize a dry rush combo during a knockdown is going to make me place him on the harder to master side of the equation though. You're going to have to learn to excel at the neutral game to maximize Jamie's potential. So I'm placing him actually just above the bullseye mark, right about here. He'll be somewhat difficult to master, but not too difficult to actually learn how to play. And moving on, next we have Ehan and his Sumo Spirit ability, which is probably one of the easiest mechanics to understand and use. By taking a second to charge it up, similar to Ryu's Denki, Ehan gets a combo ender on his 100 slap that leaves him a lot of openings to choose if you want to end in a longer combo, finish with a super, or close out a match with a command grab. Unlike Ryu though, it appears to be used automatically at the end of his 100 slap combo where you can't choose whether or not to use it. Being a grappler, you would think Ehan is normally pretty bad at dealing with fireballs. However, the changes made to his headbutt having plus frames and butt slam being airborne, he looks to have a relatively easy time compared to some of the other grapplers to deal with these ranged zoners. This is why I'm placing Honda pretty far left for skill to learn, and relatively low on the scale for difficulty to master. I'm feeling Ehan is probably going to sit right about here. And now for Guile. In Street Fighter 6, Guile gained a perfect boom system, where when he times his input correctly, he can activate a sonic boom fireball that is stronger than the regular sonic boom. Guile's ability to zone people and keep them at a distance is complemented extremely well with a strong neutral button and options to push his opponents away safely. Conversely, Street Fighter 6 gives players a lot of ways to get in your face, and learning to deal with each of them from the different characters is going to be where the challenge lies with Guile. With a relatively simple game plan, he looks to be one of the characters that's easy to learn but hard to master, so I'm placing him a little left of center and further up on the chart. He's going to sit right about here. And now we're moving on to Zangief. Zangief is a scary monster this time around. While he doesn't possess a particular mechanic to learn unlike other characters, he has the highest base damage command grabs in the game. Only needing to land 2 regular command grabs and an overdrive command grab to knock out an entire life bar from your opponents is going to limit how many mistakes most players are able to make against him. On the flip side, he suffers more than ever against projectile focused characters and will have a hard time dealing with characters who can force disengages with him like JP or Dalsim. I think Zangief will be very easy to learn, but will take quite a bit of effort to learn how you can successfully get in with him. That's why I'm placing him decently far to the left and just above center for difficult to master, so right about here. Next up, we have DJ. DJ's unique gameplay mechanic is called Just Cool. It makes him take a quick back step that steps him far enough back to avoid any close range opponents pressing buttons while maintaining a good position to punch them if they do. It also has great mix-up opportunities, allowing him to go into a low, mid, overhead, or anti-air strike combo if he catches opponents with the whiff punish. His potential for mix-up opportunities are situational control, and I think there's a lot of chances for a good DJ player to really maximize the potential with how much he can be mastered. So this is why I'm placing him in the upper right quadrant, but perhaps closer to the middle of the learning difficulty, similar to Cammy. I'm keeping him... We're going to go with right about here. And lastly, we have Banan. Banan's mechanic is her grappler medals. What's unique about them is they don't actually go away in between rounds. Her grappler medals are unique in that they're the only chore mechanic of any character that doesn't reset between rounds. So anything you get as far as stacking her medals from the first and second rounds will carry over to the third if it goes that far. Her medals give her some extreme damage in the form of buffing her command grabs. She gains medals by landing command grabs or by executing her command strike combos. This gives her excellent opportunities as a mix-up specialist, but since her power spikes incredibly hard with these medals, and she's bounced around them, she suffers from a relatively bad neutral game in comparison. Dealing with her stubby buttons will require mana players to be very aware of what her opponents are capable of and adapting to it. Her medal system is very suited towards this. Banan will be very scary if matches go to game 3. Since she'll most likely be reacting to errors from her foes, I see her being difficult to master, but relatively easy to learn by comparison. So I'm placing Banan in the left of center and somewhat high on the difficulty to master part. We're going right about here, maybe a little lower. I don't think she'll be quite as hard to end up having to learn to read as Cammy or DJ. And there you have it. So this is kind of how I feel like each character is going to scale in terms of how easy they are to learn versus how hard they are to master. I think with some of the characters like Lily, Marissa, and Kimberly, we're going to see a lot of people have good success early on as the game launches. And I think it's going to take quite some time for people like Cammy, DJ, ChunLi, and JP to really start popping off. But when they do, they are gonna pop off hard. They have so many tools available to make all kinds of crazy things happen. So I'm very excited to see what happens over the longevity of this game, especially in the first 3 months as people are learning the characters and developing. I think we're going to be in for some amazing content from all the other creators that are out there, and I think it's going to be just a great time. So I hope y'all are looking forward to the launch of Street Fighter 6 as much as I am. I know when it comes out, I'm probably going to be focusing on Banan, Cammy, and I don't know who else. I'll probably continue Jury like I did with the beta before. And I just kind of want to see where it goes from there. See who I'm feeling. I'm going to give a lot of the different characters some time to play and just feel what clicks. So thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me. Y'all have a great afternoon. Hit that like, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
Let's do this.
And y'all